So, hello everybody. So yesterday, Michelle and I were having a conversation about friends, enemies, and strangers, and that whole meditation that we had during the Memorial Day retreat about that. And so I was explaining that what's the purpose of that meditation wasn't to put people in categories, who's our friend, who's our enemy, who's a stranger, but the purpose is to reduce the attachment to the people we call friends, the antagonism towards the people we call enemies, and the apathy towards everybody that we don't know and don't relate to very much. Okay? So the purpose of that meditation is to really change our feelings. And as it happens, who are the people that we get attached to? They're the people who help us, who give us presents, who agree with our ideas, who do what we want them to do. And so those people we call friends, okay? The people who get in our way, who disagree with us, who do what we don't want, who interfere with our happiness, we call those people enemies. They don't have to be like Osama bin Laden. They can just be somebody we don't get along with. And then strangers is just everybody else who we, kind of walk by on the street or, run by at the gas station or whatever, okay? So the basic thing is to work with those three emotions that we tend to have towards those three groups of people, and to remember that it's us that put people in those three groups. So nobody is inherently a friend or an enemy or a stranger. When we were born, everybody was a stranger. Yeah, some people moved into the friend group, some people in the enemy group. Some of the people in the friend group we lost touch with became strangers again. Some moved into the enemy group. Some of the enemy group, you meet them in a different situation, they become friends, or you lose touch with them, they become strangers again. Okay, so those groups are very flexible, and we delegate people to them based on how they treat me, because clearly we are the center of the universe who is able to judge who's a good person and who's a bad person. Good people are people who do what I want and who agree with me. Bad people are people who get in my way. Okay, so we can see from that just how biased this whole thing of friend, enemies, and strangers is, because it's all based on how people treat me. Somebody has a good quality, as long as they show, they're very generous. If they're generous to me, oh, they are a wonderful person. If they are generous to somebody I compete with, then they go, it's the same quality, but now they go in the enemy camp, because they're kind to somebody I don't like. Yeah. Whereas, so just how we categorize people, so subjective. It doesn't really have to do what qualities they have. It has to do with what qualities they show to us and how they relate to us. So that's not a very good indicator of how to relate to people. But it's the one most of us fall into. And this is also why we have so many problems with people, because we put people in the friend category, and then when they do something we don't like, then we put them over to the enemy category. Sometimes they're just there for a day, and then they come back into the friend one. Sometimes we put them in the enemy for a while, and we're really mean and nasty to them and complain about them. So, but the whole thing is, it's very subjective. And our moods, our emotions towards these people are completely haphazard and self-centered. Yeah? And so it's going to be difficult to do the bodhisattva practices with that kind of mind, because it's a very biased, partial mind. And bodhisattva is the whole foundation. How can you have love and compassion for people if you're categorizing people into friends, enemies, and strangers, and you are attached to some and hate others and apathetic towards the third group? Your bodhisattva practice can't move as long as, we're stuck in those three emotions and those three kind of categories. So I was thinking the way His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, when you hear him talk, he says, wherever I go, I see friends. Yeah, I consider everybody a friend. So when he goes into new situations, yeah, he's not looking around of like, okay, who's going to do what I want? And who's going to help me? Who's going to harm me? He's not going in with a suspicious mind or a mind that feels unsafe or a mind that, just doesn't trust the situation. He goes in with a mind of starting out, all these people are my friends. And he relates to them as friends. But for him, friend doesn't mean having this special gooey, sticky relationship where you're my friend and I'm always together with you and you always agree with me. Okay? For him, friend just means, we're friendly and we help each other and we have good feelings about each other. Yeah. And so I was thinking, he goes in with that attitude, so that's what he sees. Yeah. If we go in with the attitude of, well, I don't know about these people, then of course that's what we're going to see. But he goes in with the baseline being not everybody's strangers, and we got to see where they fit, but everybody is a kind human being and a friend. Yeah. Then, even if some people try and harm him, okay, other people may say, oh, those people are His Holiness's enemies. But from His Holiness's side, he doesn't say those people are my enemies. He says those people are suffering from anger, or those people are suffering from confusion. And he responds with compassion, because he's not judging the person in terms of how they relate to him. He's just looking at, there's a suffering sentient being, and it doesn't matter, is that person attacking him or attacking somebody else. For His Holiness, that doesn't matter. The thing is basically that person is somebody who's suffering and so is worthy of compassion. So he doesn't put them in the enemy category or the stranger category. Yeah. And he just, from his side, continues to see that person as a friend. So it's pretty remarkable to do this. But what I think it shows us is that it's possible to do. And it gives us a roadmap of how we can think of altering our perceptions of people and altering how we categorize and think of people. Yeah, because so much of, what we think, how we conceptualize and categorize people is what we make them become. Yeah, and if from our side we change what we think and our conceptualization, then these people become something different in our mind, and by our treating them different, then they also become different. Okay, is this making some sense to you? Yeah? So just to give you an example, one of the inmates that I write to, this guy's really working things, the Dharma, very bright man. And he very much, he loves the bodhisattvas, And so he wrote me, he said, the bodhisattvas, they probably have some leftover karma to, be in samsara and experience difficulties. But they make the bodhisattva vow, and they vow to continue to come back in samsara, in order to benefit sentient beings. And so, they do that, and their vow kind of overpowers their karma. So even if they had the karma to have a lot of suffering, by the fact of having the bodhicitta intention and that vow to see sentient beings in a different light, that overpowers his karma, yeah, the bodhisattva's karma, so that the bodhisattva, wherever they go, every place is the opportunity to practice bodhicitta. Yeah, and everybody is a sentient being that you can practice bodhicitta with. Yeah, and every situation, and mind you, he's in prison with a long sentence, every situation you're living in is an opportunity to practice bodhicitta. Yeah, because he's saying, because he was applying that, how it is for bodhisattvas, and saying, well, somewhere along the line, as a sentient being, I clearly had some connection with the Dharma because I met the Dharma this life. And I love the bodhisattvas, so I must have had, maybe have some kind of aspiration from a previous life such that this lifetime I meet the Dharma. And so he was saying, so if I see myself as like having a vow or an intention like the bodhisattvas do, then I can live that way here in this situation too, without feeling burdened by it and overpowered by it and feeling like, it's my karma and my karma's weighing on me. But, he can see it in a totally different way. Yeah. And so disbanding that whole thing of friend, enemy, and stranger, and attachment, apathy, and aversion. Okay. So something to chew on for all of us. Very practical. Yeah. Not intellectual philosophy, not difficult to understand, just difficult to get our self-centered mind to budge on. But if we can get budge the self-centered mind, then think of how much freer we're going to feel. And so this is why it's important to think of the benefits of bodhicitta, so that we really want to practice and want to transform our minds.